If you wish to fill in large areas or smoothly depict subjects such as water and skin tone, the shader is a must to have in your kit. Unfortunately, shaders have a reputation for being the most difficult of the pyrographic pens to master. Most people initially, to some degree, struggle to burn an even tone with the shader. If you're one of these people, take heart, you're definitely not alone. Practice is my advice. With practice, you'll get the feel of the consistency of speed, pressure and rhythm that is needed for neat coverage. There are many varieties of shaders, and the following are some of the more common. Of the flat shaders, I prefer the round profile best. I find the rounded tip easy to drag smoothly, and much like comparing a round brush to a square one, I also find the round tip has a softer edge to its burnt line. This helps in the burning of gradient tone. Gradient tone is the subtle change of darkness seen in smooth objects such as the human skin and water. It is built up by burning a series of abutting and slightly overlapping lines. Subtle changes of tone are achieved by a gradual build-up in these layers. Shading nibs are also good for blocking in solid colour. When background areas are burnt like this, it helps the non-burnt areas stand out. True to the description of this tip, the shader is often used to depict shadow. As seen on this Celtic cross, shadow is a wonderful tool when trying to create 3D realism. Burning any smooth object will benefit from the use of the shading pen. This is especially true of water, both above and beneath. The glass-like surface of the eye can also be produced by delicate use of the shader. Realistic portrait burning is yet another form of pyrography that would be virtually impossible to achieve without the shading pen. There are countless other examples of times when the shader could be put to use, but basically speaking, if your eye sees it as smooth, the shader is the pen for you. This shader has a shallow, bowl-shaped profile which is significant when you compare it to a flat shader. If a flat shader is tilted slightly when burning a line, one side of that line tends to be darker than the other. This can cause striations through the shaded area. Because of its curved shape, the spoon shader leaves a consistently even edge. This aids in the blending of successive lines when doing shading. When compared side by side, it's easy to see that the large flat shader does have one distinct advantage over the spoon. It burns a much wider path, making it an excellent shader for blocking in broad areas. Because each of these shaders has its own distinct advantage, a case could be made for having one of both in your kit. Another aspect of the spoon shader that I enjoy is its versatility. It can be used much in the same way as a fat writing nib and is able to be pushed and pulled in any direction. Because of this ability, the spoon shader can be used to burn an entire picture without the need of other tips. Because the spoon shader burns a soft, shallow trench, I found this nib is invaluable when building up soft-looking animal fur. I essentially use the spoon to burn the animal's undercoat, imparting the basic colour and structure of the fur before adding any sharp top coat hair. When building up the undercoat, I make sure my strokes are slightly askew, overlapping, and in proportionate length to the animal's hair. For instance, the strokes on the tiger's nose are very short. On the ruff, they are much longer. The rounded base of this shader also allows it to be used as a stippling tool. The burnt blobs can be used as simple decoration, or they can be built up in various layers to produce an entire picture. Elephant eye was burnt almost entirely with a spoon shader. The only other tip that was used was a skew, which burnt the sharp crease lines. These creases could have also been burnt with the toe of a spoon shader. This next tip is the spear shader. While we look at the spear shader in action, I thought it'd be interesting to also watch some pictures come to life. The shading nib is one of the most versatile yet misunderstood pens in the burner's kit. I hope as you see these pictures develop that you get a sense of just how integral the shader is to much of my work. The last of the conventional shaders I'll show you is the angle shader. This flat shader is handy for shading or blocking up to straight edges. The 90-degree version of this shader is the chisel shader. While we watch the angle shader go through its paces, let's also look at a series of pictures where the shader plays an integral part in the composition. This last shader is part of a new breed of shading tip. Its polished steel base is extremely smooth, which aids in its ease of travel across the project surface. The teardrop shader is slightly convex, which also aids in the smooth travel and helps prevent striation lines through shading work. The nib can be swept sideways or pulled towards yourself, and the toe can be used for detailed work. The added bonus of this tip is that it can be used as a miniature iron for transferring laser printed or photocopy patterns. The one drawback of this pen is it does take longer to heat than some of the other smaller shaders.